Welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Adelmi Ruiz coming to you from the digital desk. And this morning, Western Alaska is dealing with severe weather conditions. Here's meteorologist Aaron Morrison to tell us what you need to know. Aaron.
Yeah, Demi, continuing to see those impacts coming in from western and southwest Alaska with that flooding, erosion, and winds, which have been in excess of about 70 to 75 miles per hour for many areas. Now, this is a photo coming in out towards Akiak and upriver region. You can see that erosion, that boat kind of hanging off of what's left of that earth. That photo coming in from Nelson Jasper. And then even out towards Eek, we did see some of those roads becoming inundated with floodwaters. That photo coming in from Sam Carter. Now, some of the hardest hit areas were through areas of southwest Alaska, the Kuskokwim Delta coastline. This is where we did see some record-breaking flooding out towards Kipnuk as well as Kwigillingok. You can see areas to the north, numerous windstorm reports that have come in. We saw several power outages, trees down that did knock off a AM radio station out towards areas of western Alaska. And while those impacts are beginning to die down for some, we're still expected to see some coastal flooding through the remainder of today. Now, the impacts for today shifting north of the Seward Peninsula. We did see locations out towards Nome where that storm tide topped out at about 5 feet. You can see even out towards Unalakleet and Kotlik, we did see some of those storm surges topping out above 5 feet. But out towards Kotzebue, Hope, Kivalina, even as you head out towards Utqiagvik, we could expect to see those tide levels topping out at about 1 to 5 feet above the normal high tide line. So good news with that is we're not expected to see any significant flooding, but there will still be that potential that we could see some minor flooding for areas of northwest Alaska. This is out towards Kipnuk. Notice that quick drop in those water levels before that storm surge did arrive through the weekend, topped out at 14.52 feet. The previous record was 13 feet set back in November of 2000. So this did lead to some devastating flooding out towards Kipnuk. When looking at these reports, the freshwater source for Kipnuk, floodwaters begin to inundate that area around 12.1 feet. So this is about 2.5 feet above that. So yeah, that did lead to some impacts for that freshwater source. Again, it did peak at 14.52 feet. Even through Norton Sound, the Unalakleet tide gauge, currently sitting at about just under 5.5 feet. That will drop below minor flood stage throughout the day. So those floodwaters will begin to recede for many, and you'll begin to see some change in that earth, particularly in locations where erosion was significant with this storm system. Further north out towards Kotzebue, last week's storm topped out at 6.71 feet. Today around noon or shortly after noon, you can see it topping out at just under 3.5 feet. So that will lead to some minor flooding for areas of Kotzebue Sound. So locations to the north, northwest, not expected to see as great of impacts, but you'll still see some gusty conditions and some minor flooding through the remainder of today. Those winds will begin to subside for many locations. We're watching our next storm system that's building in just south of the Aleutians throughout the midweek time frame. And this is going to be a weaker storm, but any storm that certainly builds in on the backside of what we did just see could certainly spark some fear in some. But with this storm system, it will be weaker than the previous two and more so taking an aim on the southern coastline. Now, we could still see areas of the Kuskokwim Delta coastline through Bristol Bay where we could see winds up to about 40 to 45 miles per hour. So we'll be watching for that, but shouldn't see any flooding impacts with the storm system as it moves in later this week. We've got ongoing rain across south central, spreading north into the interior. There's that next storm that we're going to be watching arriving as we welcome in the middle of the week, bringing some gusty winds as well as some rain through the Aleutians, the Alaska Peninsula, and the southern coastline is where we're going to see the main impacts from this next storm. And it's primarily just going to bring some heavy rain and some gusty winds in the forecast. Now, for locations out towards the Aleutians, we will see some rough seas with this storm system as it moves in. So we could see areas south of the Aleutians where the storm waves could top out at about 30 feet in some areas. So we'll be watching for that. Here across south central, rain stays with us throughout the day. Temperatures warming, mid to upper 40s to be expected. We will see that potential for up to a half an inch of rain for inland areas. We'll keep with that chance for some rain throughout the week. Temperatures do cool off by week's end, where we're going to be watching that potential for our first official freeze of the season as the weekend arrives. Adelmi?
All right. Thank you, Aaron. An unbelievable moment caught on camera from Kipnuk, where a shipping container carried by the high flood waters and strong winds knocks into a home. Homes in western Alaska not standing up to the conditions former Typhoon Halong is bringing to the state. This video shows some of what people are fighting against right now as the storm pummels villages and towns. It's one of the most difficult storms people in western Alaska have seen. The Department of Public Safety says at least 8 homes in that area were pushed from their foundations. And looking ahead, with storms like this, safety concerns continue after the water subsides. The Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation says systems like wells and wastewater treatment plants can be negatively impacted. Also, fuel systems in homes can be damaged and leak into the environment. For example, heating oil tanks can become loose from their structures and float away or tip over. The DEC is ready to go into the field once the State Emergency Operations Center calls.
And this is going to include helping communities assess their drinking water and wastewater systems. We'll be helping out with any spills or contamination and supporting, safe cleanup and recovery operations.
As always, we will continue to monitor the situation and bring you updates as they become available. And the Alaska Department of Transportation is also working to keep up with storm damage across the western portion of the state.
The Bethel Airport took a lot of high wind, a lot of debris on the runway, so our airport maintenance people are clearing that runway.
Crews in Bethel were hard at work Sunday following hours of sustained wind speeds and high water. While cleanup efforts are underway, it will be hours before the full extent of the damage will be known as we all work to see what the scale of the damage will be. Shannon McCarthy with DOT says the people of Western Alaska will need continued support through this significant storm.
We're really part of just a larger statewide team. So DEC, state troopers, even the U.S. Coast Guard, FEMA, those are all of us are working together. We are providing that support through the state's Emergency Operations Center, both with our partners and with our state partners and with our federal partners as well.
McCarthy says keeping runways clear is so important because our airports are our lifelines. Now to the latest in the government shutdown, which continues today. Hundreds of staff fired from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as the weekend began have been reinstated. And that's according to the American Federation of Government Employees. On Friday night, 1,300 CDC workers received layoff notices, but 700 were reinstated the following day. According to an official with the Department of Health and Human Services, the mistakenly fired employees were sent incorrect notifications because of a coding error. President Trump said late Friday afternoon he planned to fire, quote, a lot of federal workers in retaliation for the government shutdown, although the move is being challenged in court. Alaskan Representative Nick Begich commented on the shutdown on Friday.
Democrats in the United States Senate are refusing to vote for a clean continuing resolution. This is the same resolution that Democrats voted for in the Senate with Republicans earlier this year, back in March. Now they're saying no, and people are really starting to feel the effects.
Senator Lisa Murkowski also putting a statement out on Friday about the shutdown and what she called Russell Vatt's latest layoffs Friday, saying in part that is poorly timed and yet another example of this administration's punitive actions toward the federal workforce, end quote. She says terminating federal employees in a shutdown will, quote, further hurt hardworking Americans who have dedicated their lives to public service and jeopardize agency missions once we finally reopen the government. As the government shutdown enters its third week, D.C.'s popular tourist attractions are shutting their doors. The Smithsonian Institute posted on its website as of Sunday it's temporarily closing its 19 museums, research centers, and the National Zoo. Facilities were able to stay open using budget funds from previous years. The zoo reassured the public that the animals will continue to be fed and cared for, but the public will not be able to watch its live animal cameras online. And Israeli hostages were received by the Israeli army today, Monday, after being released by Palestinian militant groups Hamas from Gaza under the first phase of a ceasefire agreement. All 20 of the surviving hostages in Gaza have now been released. A first group of 7 has returned to Israel, while 13 others are on their way back to Israel after being released in Gaza. The remains of 28 other hostages are also expected to be transferred today as part of the first phase of a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. When a shooting happens, especially at a place like a school, having a plan and being prepared is essential. And that's why first responders across the Matsu took part in an active school shooter drill at an elementary school. It took place at Iditarod Elementary in Wasilla. The drill included law enforcement agencies, emergency response crews like fire and EMS, and school administrators. Wasilla's chief of police says the services across the valley haven't done a large-scale multi-agency response exercise like this one.
I think a lot of it's going to be law enforcement is going to learn what EMS is going to do, is going to learn what the school district is going to do, and vice versa, is that EMS and the school district and the hospital and all these other entities that we have to work with are going to understand from the law enforcement aspect.
School districts often run drills throughout the year, but active shooter drills are difficult to run. So for the school district, the chance to simulate experience with volunteers from the district can help them understand what needs to be done in those chaotic moments.
Individuals who have agreed to participate on a Saturday to really learn and feel what this is like in real life. And so we just appreciate people's willingness to give up their time on a Saturday and learn a little bit more about this scenario so that we can share that experience with all of our administrators, all of our staff, and feel more prepared.
The exercise included high school students and their parents also simulating the events, with some parents being told to act how they would in the event the tragedy would ever occur. Our investigative team is digging into new federal immigration enforcement policies in Alaska. Their focus was on how workplace audits are leading to the arrests of longtime workers without permanent legal status. The administration says it's about upholding the law. Critics say it's tearing families apart. We spoke with 41-year-old Paola Guzman, a housekeeper who worked in Alaska for 2 decades, has 2 U.S.-born sons, and no criminal record. This summer, she was arrested by ICE during a workplace audit. Guzman spent months at the Tacoma Detention Center before a judge ordered her release on bond. Before the judge ordered her release on bond, saying she wasn't a flight risk or a danger. She still faces probable deportation. When we met with Guzman and her sons in Anchorage, she describes what life was like in the detention center.
Like thinking about it, what is my best option, and I want to fight for my kids, to be with them. I can imagine to go back to my country and be just by myself, and because all my family is here. So I know that I have to start fighting for them.
A key part of this story involves workplace audits. They're known as I-9 inspections and are a key part of federal immigration enforcement. The Trump administration has signaled this approach is intentional. Board Czar Tom Homan told 60 Minutes last year workplace enforcement serves multiple purposes.
Worksite enforcement operation is just not about people who's working illegally in the country and companies that hire them that's going to undercut their competition that has U.S. citizen employees. It's where we find a lot of trafficking cases, women and children who are forced into forced labor to pay off their smuggling fee.
And Homan argues historically immigrants have kept crossing the border illegally because he says they know they will not face real consequences. Immigration advocates argue the approach unfairly targets workers who pose no public safety threat. And Guzman is still waiting on a court decision to find out if she can stay in America. Next for the team to explore, examining how this enforcement approach is impacting Alaska and the debates it causes. New research shows humans are living longer. But there's an emerging crisis among adolescents and young adults. A study published Sunday from the University of Washington School of Medicine says in 2023, life expectancy among women was more than 76 years for women and more than 71 years for men. That's back up to pre-pandemic levels. The leading cause of death globally was heart disease and stroke rather than infectious disease, with about half of diseases being preventable. But researchers found a large increase in deaths among those aged 20 to 39 in high-income North America attributed to suicide, drug overdose, and high quantities of alcohol. In several parts of the world, deaths also increased among those aged 5 to 19 due to infectious diseases and unintentional injuries. Researchers recommended policymakers expand health priorities, especially among adolescents and young adults. Switching gears to some lighter news, the Mega Millions jackpot has grown to an estimated $575 million. That's after no one matched all 6 numbers in Tuesday night's drawing. The jackpot has been rolling over since the last winner on June 27th. If there's a winner in Friday night's drawing, they'll have a cash option worth more than $264 million. This marks the 11th largest jackpot in Mega Millions history. And today, October 13th, also marks another important day, made even more special this year as it is officially the 250th birthday of the U.S. Navy. It was on this day in 1775 the Continental Congress greenlit the first U.S. naval force. According to nationaldaycalendar.com, the Continental Navy had just 2 ships and a crew of 80 men at the time of its inception. Compared to today, the Navy now has more than 340,000 active duty personnel and upwards of 71,000 reservists. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo won't be clipping coupons anytime soon. The Portuguese soccer superstar is now the sport's first billionaire, according to Bloomberg. This boost in his bank account came earlier this year when he signed a new contract with Al Nassr. Ronaldo went to the Saudi Pro League 2 years ago and became soccer's highest paid player, bringing in about $200 million per year, according to the Saudi state media. In addition to his paycheck for playing, the 40-year-old Ronaldo has a few side hustles, including sponsorships with Nike, Castrol, and Armani. Other sports-based billionaires include Michael Jordan and Roger Federer. 14-year-old Dariella Foster is almost always smiling. Just days before her mother turned to social media for a special request, they found out Dariella's stage 4 bone cancer was now considered terminal. Her mother, Damaris Gonzalez, posted on a Facebook group asking to borrow 2 quinceañera dresses for the girls who turn 15 next month. Not for a party because she says she can't afford one, but for photos. Now, a quinceañera is a coming-of-age party where 15-year-old girls are celebrated and often wear extravagant dresses. The response to her mom's Facebook post is keeping everyone in the family smiling. More than 3,000 shares and nearly 3,000 comments. Donations have poured in and businesses have offered free services. A date is set, a venue is secured. The dresses are still to be determined as the girls have options to choose from, but this family is full of gratitude. Thank you for watching the Morning Edition Extra this Monday morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another edition of the Morning Edition Extra. Have a great rest of your day.